Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. My guest is Stacy Pellettieri. She is a licensed clinical social worker. And in the state of New York, she's an LCSW-R, so the highest level of clinical social worker to practice. Insurance companies cannot deny her. So that is so cool. She is the founder of 5 leading ventures in the mental health space: District Support Services, Long Island Counseling, Right Path Counseling, the ADHD Training Center, and she has the podcast, Why Do People Do That? That's a cool name.
Yeah.
With more than 30 years of experience, Stacy is widely respected, expert in trauma, child and adolescent mental health, anxiety, depression, neurodiversity, grief and loss, with specialized expertise in early childhood trauma and sibling loss. Stacy, it's such an honor to host you today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I love when fellow social workers with tons of experience come on and join me. I feel like we just understand each other's language.
Yeah, it's always a great conversation. So I'm excited to be here and talk to you for sure.
Awesome. So as my show is for complex trauma survivors, there's a lot of women our age that are listen, some younger, and I do have a few men that listen as well. One of the things I have found with the different healers and therapists that could come on is that we also have our own personal trauma story. And I think it's one of our superpowers and how we're to be so effective in our profession. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's a lot of times why we're in the field, right? I remember being in social work school and sitting in one of my classes, and the professor had us sit in a circle and asked us all one day, why are we here? Why did we choose this profession? And we all had a story.
Is there a piece of your story that you're comfortable with sharing with us today? You don't
I
have to go into great detail.
Yeah, I'm happy to share any piece of my story. When it comes to complex trauma, right, sometimes what makes it complex is that there's so many different moving parts to it, right? Through the memory channel, it starts with one and then it just blends into the others. A lot of the things I have experienced in my life have been affected by some of my earliest experiences. And so what I feel I hold near and dear to my heart is my earliest trauma, which is a loss of my sibling. I was 3. And so, why it's so important to me to talk about is because I do find in this space that early childhood trauma is very often overlooked. There's a lot of belief around the idea that the child isn't really going to remember, so they're going to just be okay. And there's definitely a lot of overlook when it comes to sibling loss because so much focus is on the parents. Losing a child is a horrible, horrendous, painful experience. And I think that the loss the sibling is experiencing can sometimes pale in comparison to how people view the parent. And the child often feels responsible for the parent. So they do get lost in the mix. And these are conversations I think that are important to have.
Yeah. I want to honor your sibling that you lost. That sounds pretty painful. What are you comfortable sharing? Was it an older sibling, younger? Are you comfortable sharing what happened?
Sure, I'm absolutely comfortable talking about it as long as you're comfortable with the on and off crying I might do as I share. Because
Absolutely.
yeah, I experience it somatically. And so my body, I think maybe because I experienced it at such a young age, I experienced my story through pain and crying, and that's how I release. And so it's hard for me to talk about without crying, but I'm comfortable with it as long as my audience is. So I was 3, she was 5. She had something that is related to meningitis. She had something called epiglottitis, which children do get shots and vaccines for today if they choose to get them. It is common in children under the age of 5, and it comes on very quickly. The epiglottis, which is a part of in the throat, it swelled up through bacterial infection, and just like that, she stopped breathing. She went to the hospital where she remains in a coma for 2 months. And so at the age of 3.5, I experienced 2 months of seeing her in this state. I saw her every day. I saw my family in pain, and it was really just this overwhelming, confusing, traumatizing time. When you look at the developmental stage of a 3-year-old, how am I really understanding or processing anything that's going on or able to ask a question or inquire or be curious? It's so difficult because the language center of the brain isn't developed enough to be able to verbalize the curiosity. And so I internalized a lot at that time. It was so scary for me. And a lot of the symptoms I had at the time were insomnia. I was afraid to go to sleep because I watched my sister sleep for 2 months and never wake up. There was this fear of uncertainty, feelings like my parents couldn't keep me safe. Seeing them unravel and crying all of the time was very confusing and scary to a 3.5-year-old. But I think the part that stands out for me the most that I find so important to talk about is the peanut gallery around my parents, their parents, the grandparents, the aunts, uncles. They all told my parents not to be honest with me about what was going on because I couldn't understand or handle it. And I was told after my sister passed that she went on a trip and wasn't coming back. And that was so
That's
terrifying.
worse. That's
Oh
so
my
much worse.
gosh. I was like,
Oh,
why would my parents and I just kept having this image, and I still have it today at 51 years old, of her sitting on a bus going away all by herself and just being like,
yeah.
why would they let that happen? Why would they do
That's
that?
way more confusing. Oh my gosh, that's
That's
so heartbreaking to hear.
traumatizing in and of itself. I was like, why would you send her on a trip all alone? Are you going to send me on a trip all alone? It was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
hard to really process and understand all of it.
yeah. And so we're going to make this about you, right? Because we know everybody involved was in pain.
Yep.
Were your parents able to parent? Obviously, they were doing the best they could with the limited tools they had at that point. But were they able to meet your needs, or did you also experience any kind of neglect in any way after your sister passing? Because I know that happens.
Yeah, so they were amazing parents and they met a lot of my needs, but the one that they did not meet was my need to grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, they needed really more my mother. She really needed, I think, in her own healing journey, she needed to believe I was okay. She needed to believe the narrative she was writing for herself, which I did not know at 3, but I noticed later on in life as I grew and just listening to the conversation she would have with my father. She really so needed to believe this did not affect me, that I did not remember, and that I was okay. And so for me, I stepped into that role and I honored what she needed in her healing journey. And so I did not bring up or talk about my sister or what happened or my feelings about it or how it affected me because I wanted to meet her needs and take care of her, make sure she was okay. I don't know that I cognitively was aware that's what I was doing in my younger years. I recognized it as I got older and started to really pay more attention and bring into my awareness what my role was as a caretaker and a caregiver and a pleaser. My father, on the other hand, noticed very early on that it absolutely did affect me. I had a lot of fear around nighttime and going to sleep. Duh. Of
Right.
course I did. Why wouldn't
Right.
I? And
Yeah.
I went through a phase where I could not go to sleep at night. I was terrified. I was having panic attacks. I believed something terrible would happen to me while I was sleeping. And it went on for probably a year to 2 years, where every night I had to have an intercom in my room. I had to check, make sure my parents were listening. Sometimes my father had to sit in my room with me all night. My mother had a very hard time handling this. she just did not understand. And I used to listen to them fight at night about it, which of course also made me feel responsible and guilty. My father would say, "This is because of Lori, my
Yeah.
sister." And my mother would say, "It is not. Stop saying that." And she would scream and yell. She was 3 years old. She doesn't remember. And the pain for me was really two-pronged. One part of it was that I felt badly for my father, who was trying to stand up for me and was getting yelled at for it. And I
Right.
felt badly for my mother, who clearly couldn't handle it. But I really felt bad for myself
Mhm.
because I did remember. And it was painful, and I did need to talk about it, but it did not feel safe. And so that is really where my parents failed to meet my needs, or my father recognized, but couldn't stand up to my mother because her pain was so loud that it really took over where the need was.
And are your parents still alive now?
My mother is not, my father is.
Before she passed, were you able to reconcile that with her, or did you let it go? Like, how did her passing impact you, and what felt resolved, what felt unresolved? If you're comfortable, if I'm going too far, it's okay to say, let's switch.
No, it's fine. It brings up a lot of emotion for me, but I don't mind talking about it, and I know that my
I think
story
it's
helps
really
others.
helping I think it's really helping the people listening because I
Yes.
don't think we talk about this enough.
Yeah, I think my story helps others, so I don't mind telling it at all. Even if I cry, it doesn't mean that I'm not okay. I am always okay with this. I've talked about it so many times over the years. So I did not resolve with my mother because up until the moment she passed, I kept true to my role in that
Mhm.
relationship to be her caretaker and to honor her needs above mine. Her passing really opened the door for me to have a voice. I wanted to really have a voice in this space and advocate and speak up for sibling loss and
Yeah.
how this shows up for the siblings, for those lost, invisible grievers. And I did not feel safe doing that until she passed. She passed in 2021. So for me, stepping into this space of using my story to help others, I'm working on writing a book about it. I feel like there's really so much that needs to be talked about in this realm. And I did not feel like I could because I felt it would hurt my mother. And so now that she is no longer here in this physical world, I feel like it is safe now because my father doesn't mind. I'm not hurting anybody and I am healing myself and helping others. So it's been freeing, even though I do grieve my mother and I miss her.
No, that is so beautiful, everything you're saying around that. And when you and your father talk about all of this now, how are those conversations for you?
It's gotten a little bit hard because he's starting to move into dementia. But in the beginning, yeah, it was nice because we were able to have the conversations without me being afraid that he was going to get in trouble. He was able to have the conversation without being afraid he was going to hurt her. No one was going to yell at us. So we were able to really complete a conversation and complete the loop of what we needed to talk about. And he was able to share some of his own pain and some of the things that he experienced. And he was able to share some of the ways which my mom shut him down in his own grieving process, because some of the ways that he needed to grieve was stepping into some beliefs about life after death, reincarnation, all these things. That was what soothed him. That's what he wanted to believe. And she did not like that. It did not soothe her, did not make her feel better. And so she really projected onto him needing to carry her beliefs so that she was comfortable. And he had to secretly have these beliefs. So it was really beautiful for us to have the opportunity to share his beliefs and mine and my thoughts and his thoughts and our experiences without worrying that we were doing something wrong.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really glad to hear that those conversations are
Yeah.
happening because I think it's just beautiful for your sister's memory too. Yeah. All right. As we know, trauma can impact all the different areas of our life.
Mhm.
Are you willing to share like maybe talk about, did it impact your physical health in any kind of way? Did it impact other relationships you've had with people in your development?
Yeah, I think it didn't affect my physical health that I'm aware of. It did absolutely affect in my younger years. I've grown and evolved, thankfully. I've gone on a journey, but in my younger years, it definitely affected my self-esteem. The role that I play with other, I definitely was a young teenager and young adult who had broken wing syndrome. I believed it was my duty to find those people out there that were struggling and help them. If I saw somebody that needed help, I felt responsible to them. And I've learned as an adult that there's healthy and unhealthy ways to do that. I do that in healthy ways in my profession as a social worker and with clients and all the advocacy that I do. But the unhealthy ways I did that when I was younger was getting involved in relationships with others where I was not able to create the boundaries that I needed to create, where I saw myself as being responsible for things that were not my place to be responsible for. And so that led to an unhealthy marriage that was emotionally abusive. And I stayed in that relationship for 10 years. It absolutely had its impact. It was a lot of emotional abuse. My ex-husband was an alcoholic, so he had his own struggles that I do recognize, but was not able or willing to get the help that he needed. And I stayed too long in that relationship because I felt a duty, I felt responsible. I was stepping into that role that formed for me when I was 3 years old.
Yeah, yeah. And did you have children in this marriage?
I did. I have two children.
Okay, I'm glad that you were able to recognize, you probably recognized way before leaving just because of our profession.
Yep.
I'm glad you gave yourself permission at some point to know you were worthy of having healthy relationships. Yeah, but I think you're right that we get in these patterns, right? Ooh, the lessons we learn and that really help our work with our clients. Because now not only did you have the loss of a sibling that you can empower your clients as they have losses, and then you've had relationships that were maybe toxic. So you have
Yeah.
that in common with a lot of our clients to go through that. How about parenting? You had your mom and your dad, and they parented you differently. How did their parenting and the loss of your sibling shape your parenting?
Good question. It's a lot there.
I'm so sorry.
That's
There is.
okay. It's all good. I think my story helps other people. It's just it's almost like the way I experience it, I like to talk about what happens for me. It's like I almost need to let the cry out so I can talk about it. It's so interesting how it shows up and how I feel it in my body. I think a lot of people don't realize that crying is actually a somatic experience. And so it builds up with such intensity inside of me that the cry is actually this release valve
Yeah,
that
it very,
allows me,
yeah. It's
yeah,
cleansing too. Cleansing. It
yeah,
releases toxins, all that.
yeah, it brings me back to a place of calm. It's like I like let it out, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
all right,
Yeah.
now I can talk about it. It's so interesting, and I've been like that always. I made friends with it. It's all good. So what I've noticed is with my children, and they are now 22 and 25, I had a very hard time as they were growing up, allowing them to experience pain at all, any pain.
Wow, that was a big job to protect them from everything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think there were so many different parts coming in there and talking about parts that IFS lens. I do a lot of parts work, and so I'm very aware of my different parts that show up. And so there's that 3-year-old part that shows up quite often and did show up. And as for me as a parent, saying, you can't allow them to feel pain. If they're really upset and something is really hard, you need to protect them. And that was my 3-year-old self stepping into that role I had with my mother. Don't allow any pain. Your role, your job is to make sure everything is always okay. And so I did see some mistakes I made as a parent really robbing my children of having the opportunities to experience what you need to learn emotional regulation. We need to be able to experience hard things. We need to experience disappointment. We need to experience sadness. We need to experience frustration. And I definitely work too hard to protect them from all of these things. There are some things you can't protect them from because you can't put them in a bubble. And so through their journey, they both had struggles. My son has ADHD, definitely experienced some bullying earlier in his years. When he was in ninth grade, first year of high school, he experienced alopecia areata. So he had bald spots on his head at the time when you need to feel good about yourself the most. I noticed for myself the way I experienced the grief I experienced, and that experience for him was so painful and overwhelming. And it's not to say that a parent doesn't experience grief and pain, but I did recognize that my 3-year-old jumped in there and took the wheel and experienced that pain on so many different levels. I experienced it as the little girl who needed to protect and found that she couldn't. You could not control every scenario. And I experienced it as a mother feeling sad for her child. And I experienced it as a child once again seeing that the world has within it things that you cannot control and that bad things happen to the people you love and there's nothing you can do about it. And so I really try to step into as a parent and as a social worker, what is my role and what can I do and how can I show up for him and how can I show up for myself? And I did all of the things that I could possibly do. Going through the divorce was difficult for my children. That was very hard for me. And I stayed longer than I needed to in that marriage because I got very stuck in, is it okay to do something that is okay for me? This is not healthy for me, but am I being selfish? Is it wrong to step up and do something that really allows me to take care of myself? Because that is not the message I got growing up, and that is not the role I played with my mother. So for me, leaving my husband only became something I was able to give myself permission to do when I really fully was able to internalize and accept that it was important for my children. I wasn't leaving for me. I was
Right.
leaving for them. What am I teaching my daughter? Am I teaching her that you should stay with a man who talks to you this way and treats you like that? And that was really my pivotal moment when I was like, I have to do this for her. I have to show my daughter. And I think if it not had been for that, my motivation to want to protect her and make sure she had healthy relationships growing up, I might have never left. Because just honoring doing it for me at that time, I was 32. I was not yet there in my healing journey where I gave myself permission to be important, right? So there was definitely mistakes there. I stayed in that relationship too long, didn't give my children the time to process feelings, needed to rescue and protect too intensely. I think those are the things that if I could go back and change, would change.
How are your relationships with them now?
I have great relationships with my kids. I've done so much growth. And so I've taken a step back and I allow them to make decisions, even if I don't like how it makes me feel. I allow them to experience things, even if I know it's going to be hard lessons for them to learn. They both live outside of the home at this point. My daughter went away to college and she lives in Manhattan. That's where her school was. And so she now works at a place that's closer to there, and that's where her friends are. So she really never came home. She comes home all the time. It's only 45 minutes away. I see her a lot, but she doesn't live in the house. And she goes out in the world and she travels by herself. She took a trip to London by herself, and my heart is, but I don't ever share my fears. I don't step in and protect. I don't say don't go because I'm going to be scared because that's what my mother did to me. And I don't
Right,
want to do
right.
the same to my kids. And so I talk to them every day and I see them a lot, but I really have learned so much and I take a step back and I allow them to experience hard things. I wish I did it sooner, but I'm at least grateful that I'm able to tolerate that now. I sit with and
Yeah,
tolerate my own hard feelings so that I can allow them to have the journey they need to have and find their own identity.
I hope you feel like you've done something right too, that she wants to spread her wings and fly and
Yes.
experience.
Yep.
I think that's beautiful.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. I'm proud of her.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about your personal life, and I really appreciate your vulnerability and being willing to share such intimate pieces of your life with people to empower others to do the same. Tell us a little bit about your professional work. I hear that you enjoy using internal family systems work. Any other favorite modalities in the work you do?
Sure. I am trained in EMDR. I find that with the right clients, that work can be really pivotal as well. I do a lot of, I have psychoanalytic training from 1998, 1999, at the time when it was way more popular. But I will say, I do find psychodynamic work can be so useful with the right clients. I love doing it, and I really do a lot of inner child work. So I really have an eclectic approach where I utilize different modalities depending on who's showing up. I like to meet the client where they're at. So we do EMDR, I do IFS, I'll do DBT and CBT when it is appropriate to do a lot of the tools-based work, creating new belief systems and changing mindset and creating new neural pathways. It's all really super important work. And what I feel really most proud of is the practice that I've grown. I reached a point in my career about 12 years ago where I was getting so many referrals, and I realized I could not, as much as my 3-year-old wanted to jump in there and save the world, I realized I cannot take on every patient. It's
Right.
okay to say no. I don't, I have 52 clients on my caseload. I can't take another one. I need to eat and sleep, pee, and
Right.
all the things. And so I said, wouldn't it be cool to hire somebody to work with me and I can train them and teach them what I know and try to help sculpt and mold their growth in the profession. And I did that. Then I filled them up and then I hired another person and so on and so on. And here I am at this point in my life where I'm 28 years out of my master's and I have over 80 therapists that work
80?
under me. Yes, at this point, I have five
Oh my
locations
goodness.
across Long Island. And I feel like what makes a leader is being able to create new leaders. And when I look at the clinical
That's
supervisors,
beautiful. 80 is no joke.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I feel like part of it was my 3-year-old wanting to fix and help everybody. And it has really morphed into creating a model where I could really teach and mentor other clinicians who are really wonderful, beautiful souls who are talented. And they can now teach and mentor and supervise other beautiful, talented souls. And it's this trickle down. And we've created a community of mental health professionals who really are so amazing, who are really stepping into our community here on Long Island to meet the mental health crisis. There's so much trauma, especially coming out of COVID and political polarization and social media and AI and all the things we're seeing. I don't think there's any human being at this point that hasn't experienced trauma on some level, whether little t or big T. And so anything I can do at this point, I've stepped out of my micro roots a little bit and into my macro to try to make a bigger impact on how we can help other people.
That's really impressive. Like I can appreciate how much work that has been, but to have that vision is really beautiful. I
Mhm.
love that.
Thank you.
And are you still, with all those therapists under you, are you still seeing clients? Are you doing any group work? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I do still see clients, not a lot. My caseload is very small. I have taken on the approach just recently of doing some intensives. If a client is calling in and they've done a lot of their own work and they're really ready for an EMDR approach, I will do some short-term intensive work with them, whether I will then work with their clinician that they're seeing for individual weekly therapy, and I'll do some of that work with them and then transition them back to their weekly therapist. I did just take a training 2 weeks ago on some more intensive IFS work. IFS through a creative arts lens, which was so
Ooh,
cool So I'm
Mhm.
excited to take on maybe one client that is interested in doing some of that work and practicing that work. We have just started doing some school-based mental health work. So with a lot of the work I'm doing personally myself in that space is I'm doing a lot of trauma-informed trainings for school social workers and psychologists and teachers so that they can meet the needs of their students through a more trauma-informed and trauma-responsive lens. Because we're seeing a lot of these kids coming into therapy where there is some rupture on the school level because the teachers or social workers or psychologists are not trained well or prepared for what's walking through their doors. So that's a lot of the work that I personally am doing myself right now.
It's beautiful work. Blown away by all that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so for people listening, if they resonate with you and your work and what they want to learn more about you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. So I do have my podcast that is new. It's only just under a year old. It's Why Do People Do That? I do have a website. It's whydopeopledo.com. You can hear me talk about all different topics. You can contact me through that website. You can email me very easily at Stacy, Stacy, at licrpc.com. I'm more than happy to take inquiries or connect with people that way. My website for my practice is longislandcounselingservices.com. So these are lots of different ways that I can be reached. I'm happy to connect with anybody who has any thoughts or questions.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for your time today.
Thank you so much for your time and for having me. I really appreciate and I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with your viewers and your audience.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.